Because adding is easy and visible and feels like progress. Every new thing you add looks like a decision being made, a problem being addressed, energy being spent in the right direction. Musk's first instinct is the opposite. Before he builds anything, before he hires anyone, before he writes any requirement, he asks what can be removed. The specific instruction he gives his engineers: design aggressively deletes first. If you are not occasionally adding back things you deleted, you did not delete enough. The bias must always run toward fewer components, fewer steps, fewer dependencies. The Falcon 9 has fewer parts than any previous rocket of comparable capability. Not because fewer parts is always better as an aesthetic choice, but because every part that exists is a part that can fail. Every part that needs to be manufactured, every part that costs money and introduces a potential failure mode. Fewer parts is not minimalism. It is engineering discipline. When Musk took over Twitter, the first thing he did was delete 80% of the workforce immediately. But the instinct is consistent. Complexity is the enemy. Start from less. Add only what survives first principles scrutiny. Before you hire a new person, add a new tool, or create a new process, ask what you can remove from the existing system first. Where is complexity accumulating in your life that is not generating proportional value? Hire for truth, not credentials. Musk does not require a degree for any position at any of his companies. This is a long-standing practice rooted in how he actually defines competence. His interview approach is documented and consistent. He asks every candidate at every level the same question: tell me about the most difficult technical or analytical problem you have ever worked on. Tell me specifically what you did, not what the team did, not what the outcome was, but what your personal contribution to the solution was. The reason this question works: anyone can learn the language of a field. Anyone can memorize vocabulary, frameworks, and accepted answers. What cannot be easily faked is the specific, granular, first-person experience of having sat with a genuinely hard problem and pushed through to a solution. The way someone describes their own problem-solving process reveals actual competence in a way that a resume or degree cannot. He is looking for people who have encountered the edge of their competence and continued past it. The credential signals that someone spent time in an institution. The problem-solving story signals what they actually built with that time. If you are building a team, stop optimizing for resumes. Ask about hard problems. Ask specifically what the person did. If you are building yourself, work on hard problems. Document how you solve them. That portfolio is what actually opens doors. Rule 3. Set the deadline you cannot justify. Musk is famous for setting timelines that appear impossible at the moment they are announced. These deadlines routinely miss their targets, and yet they consistently produce outcomes faster than any reasonable alternative timeline would have allowed. When a deadline is achievable and comfortable, people optimize the existing approach. They produce version 2.0 of what already exists, incrementally better, using the same processes that produced version 1.0. When a deadline is genuinely impossible under the existing approach is no longer an option. People have to redesign from first principles. They have to delete parts of the process, hire differently, make decisions faster, challenge requirements that were never questioned. The impossible deadline forces the kind of thinking that the comfortable deadline permits you to avoid. The impossible deadline is not a motivational trick. It is an engineering constraint that forces the system to redesign itself. The team that meets an impossible deadline usually does not meet it by working harder. They meet it by working on a fundamentally different version of the problem. Whatever major goal you are working toward, cut your timeline in half. Not because the shorter timeline is more realistic. Because the shorter timeline forces you to identify what is actually necessary and what is habit masquerading as necessity. Rule 4. Own your critical path. Elon Musk vertically integrates everything. Tesla designs and manufactures its own batteries, its own chips, its own software stack, its own charging infrastructure, its own insurance products. SpaceX builds its own rocket engines, its own avionics, its own launch pad equipment, its own recovery systems. The conventional wisdom says focus on your core competency and outsource everything else. The reasoning makes sense. Specialization creates efficiency. Musk's reasoning is different. In any business, there is a critical path, a sequence of components or capabilities that determines the ultimate performance, cost, and schedule of the final product. Whoever controls the critical path controls the business. If you outsource a critical component to a supplier, you have effectively outsourced control of your business to that supplier. Their limitations become your limitations. Their delivery schedule becomes your launch schedule. Their cost structure becomes your cost floor. Tesla was entirely dependent on Panasonic for battery cells for years. That dependency constrained how fast Tesla could scale, what specifications were available, and at what cost. The Gigafactory was not built because Musk enjoys manufacturing. It was built because the battery was the critical path, and he could not allow someone else to own it. In whatever you are building, what is the one variable that most determines whether you succeed? That variable is your critical path. The degree to which someone else controls it is the degree to which you work for them, not for yourself. Make failure cheap and fast. Failure is an option here. If things are not failing, you are not innovating enough. This is not a motivational poster. It is a design principle for how Musk structures his organizations. SpaceX's first 3 Falcon 1 launches failed. Each exploded or failed to reach orbit. Each failure cost money. And each failure generated the specific data that produced the modifications that made the 4th launch a success. The 4th launch became the first privately funded, liquid-fueled rocket to reach orbit in history. 2 weeks after that 4th launch, SpaceX received a $1.6 billion NASA contract. The critical variable was not whether the first 3 launches succeeded. The critical variable was how fast SpaceX could fail and learn, compared to Boeing and Lockheed, who took years between launches because each failure was expensive and politically painful. 4 of the first 5 Starship flight tests ended in explosions. Each explosion generated specific data that produced specific modifications. The 5th flight was a success. The explosion is not a failure in the traditional organizational sense. It is a test result with a very loud notification sound. In your own decisions, your investments, your projects, design your experiments so that failure is fast and cheap. Make small bets that generate real data before making large bets. Test the hypothesis before you build the entire business. The willingness to fail quickly at low cost is not recklessness. It is the most efficient known path from hypothesis to knowledge. Deleting before you build creates a simpler organization. A simpler organization is easier to staff with people who are actually good. People who are actually good can operate under more aggressive timelines. When you own your critical path, you can iterate faster. When you iterate faster, failure becomes cheaper and you learn more from each result. As learning accelerates, the compound effect separates your organization from competitors, moving more slowly. The system is oriented toward one thing: learning speed. The organization that learns fastest wins. Not the one with the most capital, the most prestigious employees, or the strongest brand. The one that moves from hypothesis to real-world feedback most quickly. Most organizations do the opposite. They add complexity because complexity feels like growth. They hire for credentials because credentials are safe to defend. They set comfortable timelines because aggressive timelines are embarrassing when they miss. They outsource critical capabilities because building them requires investment that does not show immediate returns. They avoid visible failure because failure has career consequences in most institutional environments. The result is an organization that accumulates overhead, learns slowly, and produces incremental outcomes. Not because the people inside it are unintelligent. Because the structure does not reward speed, simplicity, or learning from failure. You do not need a rocket company. You do not need billions of dollars. You need to delete something you have been adding to. You need to hire or build yourself based on evidence of genuine problem solving. You need to set a timeline that makes your current approach impossible. You need to identify your critical dependency and own it. And you need to design at least one experiment in your life where failure generates data instead of just generating cost. 5 rules. 1 system. Available to you starting today. If this changed how you think about building something, hit like and subscribe. In the next video, the 5 habits that separate the founders who scale from the founders who stall, and how to develop them without burning out. See you there.